mà, xuống mà.
Xuống không?
Này á.
Ủa, lên được không? Lên được không?
Để xong đi không nha. Hay là có người đi rồi?
Có người đi nó tự động. Nó tự động. Có được đâu. Không mờ. Nó bằng 720 chứ mấy. 20 chứ 81 à 720. Được đi. Được rồi á.
Nhưng mà cái gì à?
Thì nó bị méo xịu rồi đó, cũng lại giống méo xịu rồi kìa. Đó, nó méo xịu qua đầu này.
Vậy có đi mà đi xịt rồi đó. Bữa bên kia chỉ mượt lắm mà ta.
Hả? Không biết vì sao. Này là méo qua đầu này. Chết được rồi. Qua nữa, qua xin nữa. Qua đi nữa.
Không đi nữa.
Không đi nữa. Miếng khóa ghê ba ơi.
Nó dùng về vậy trời.
Thời đi mà thủ công thôi chứ anh chị.
Ê. Chị trời.
Những hơi cầm súng mà.
Bên
đây xíu.
chỗ này của người ta, chỗ này của người ta có ai ngồi. Bên này không thay ra. Bên này không thay ra.
Không thay.
Từ sáng chiều nó phải thay chứ. Không phải thay được cho người ta người mới tới chứ tự nhiên thấy không thay rồi. Mày có thay không? Không, cái này mới, còn mới nhưng mà em không thay được ta, trời. Em xin ra đó này.
Không thay luôn à? Chắc là anh đoán rồi nha. Có nghĩ là hắn kiểm tra phía dưới mà hắn không ai viết hết để không kiểm tra hết.
Hắn kiểm tra hết, đúng không? Làm đi.
Cái màu nó cam quá, nó ghê quá Thắng. Màu này nó
em mà sao nó bị
không có cam quá không? Chỉnh được mà, nên chỉnh được.
Cho nó bớt lại xí nữa anh, nhìn nó lòe quá đi. Chỉ nghĩ đi màu khác không? Tôi cho chữ đó. Tôi cho. Nó cần chứ phải thay mấy đốp nữa, chỉ cần một cái một thôi.
Nó màu xanh luôn em.
Gớm đời chỉ cả. Ê, cái này cũng một cái đó, tại vì cái màu nó gốc như nào thì phải là như đó, nó chỉ sáng tối chứ thôi. Nóng quá. Không được thì cái này nó sáng quá đi.
Sáng quá.
Nhìn cái này nó. Nói chung là nó nhạc like chắc ổn lắm đúng không? Em không hiểu lý do vì sao nó mở nhá. Em hiểu lý do vì sao nó mở nha.
Chắc bự cái này chắc chừng nữa thôi chứ.
Không anh, hôm bữa nay bên cái chỗ hội nghị thuế lét lắm anh. Zoom nha, like từ sau kia. Cái sau là cái người phát biểu đây zoom tới này luôn ok mà.
Em zoom bằng cái gì đó, nó zoom bằng cái gì?
Cái này nghe em ngồi em canh, ví dụ như em canh người phát biểu của em điều khiển tên cái điều khiển zoom tới đó luôn. Mà không biết lý do gì.
Cái này nó tệ nó mất 10 mới được thầy.
Đúng rồi, không có đâu, cái này không nói đâu. Thôi chưa vô nguồn test đó gì.
Độ nét ở đó. Linh nhúng hết rồi. Lên đây ngồi em.
Không nhớ là em mới nhớ xem là bấm cái số này như này đây. cái pin này làm gì mà hết đây?
Một cái chín này. Anh vẫn lên được cái không kìa? Anh vẫn lên được cái lên này.
Tới xếp 4 thì bao nhiêu xếp qua cái này 10 phút rồi.
Nó hộp mà anh kìa.
Đấy là anh còn chiều nay nên là 4 giờ là 2 giờ hẹn đấy là 2 giờ đấy. Xong
anh nó mới nhắc lại mà.
Đây đi theo cái đánh đoàn từ 2:30. Xoay quanh bây giờ buổi họp 2 giờ gắn đấy.
Ở thời gian của họ đấy chứ đâu.
Thì đó tự nhiên cái đấy.
chương trình của chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu. Thì xin mời tất cả quý vị chúng ta cùng ngồi để chương trình bắt đầu. Tiếp theo chương trình của chiều hôm nay thì xin mời ông Nêu Yên, giám đốc văn phòng phát triển doanh nghiệp của Logistics sẽ lên trình bày tiếp tục chúng ta về chuyên đề của buổi sáng ngày hôm nay. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông.
Hello, good to see you again. Try to steer. This afternoon, we're going to share a little bit more about what Republic Polytechnic does to support startups. So the focus is more on startups. As I was preparing the slides about supporting startups from ideation to growth, it occurred to me that actually there is no one formula. So it really depends on what kind of startup, who are the founders, and so on. So instead of trying to prescribe a certain formula, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 case studies about how Republic Polytechnic, in particular the Office of Entrepreneurship Development, actually supported 3 of our startups which have actually achieved some form of success. Okay? So the first one, this lady is Miss Kavya. She just graduated from Republic Polytechnic in engineering design with business. She's actually our student in engineering design with business, and she has just graduated in May this year. Okay, and let me just show you a video first. Let's rewind.
Dạ chút xíu rồi em thử có thấy được chưa không? Con thấy được không mà không thấy được đâu. Cơ bản là nó mờ, chất lượng video nó mờ. Em lại làm một phần mềm đi nó có cái giới hạn. Phần mềm đi có giới hạn về cái gì? Thế là làm phần mềm đi có giới hạn chất lượng mà.
Tại vì hôm bữa em vô không có màn test á, cũng nét đúng không? Đó mà đang bị tính gì
And here's why that's cool. The grid box has compartments for all your food, and yes, it fits pizza boxes. And for the drinks, we've added Velcro straps. So when you take those shotguns, no more bucket tsunamis. Look, we know you've got a lot to handle out there. Let the box do all the work. Keep your food safe,
cái chỗ mà
your drinks are right, and your deliveries on point.
cái đoạn này đâu có chỗ để chất lượng video
mà.
Your ride stays cool, and
Ý là như thế này, cái như Thủy hôm bữa là chị xem cũng rõ đúng không? Ý là mình cũng
Yeah,
để
so
thấy
Kavya,
vẫn rõ mà đúng không? Mình chưa vấn được
this
mà.
innovation is
Không đâu đến nỗi đâu.
actually she saw the problems that the delivery riders was facing, and she actually conducted interviews with them and found out what were the problems, and then she designed a delivery box for them. Some of the achievements that Kavya did, of course, just now that short
Cái hồi nữa mình có like lên Zoom, có làm lên Zoom nên là mình chia slide cho họ xem được. Hồi đó có làm lên Zoom nên mình chia slide cho họ xem được. Bây giờ không có slide luôn.
Entrepreneur Innovation Program, she managed to actually put together that video, and through that, increase awareness. And Kavya achieved a few small achievements when she was with us. One was that Kavya received the Global Entrepreneurship Award and was featured in our national newspaper, The Straits Times. And of
Trong
course,
cái phần mềm này mình chia slide được không ta? Trong phần mềm này mình chia slide được không?
chưa mò ra. Em nghĩ là được,
Hình như mình thêm
chắc là được.
thêm story đúng không?
Xuyên cặp này hai.
Mình nghĩ là thêm từ thêm một cái slide nào. Có slide nào không ta?
This is Kavya's journey. Okay, so I will walk you through
cách
Kavia's
này
journey.
cách học vẫn hai được nè.
As
Tôi làm cái
some
chuyển
of
cảnh
you will
được
find this
có
map
slide chuyển cảnh.
earlier I shared the map of how we actually students from
Sinh hai này
India and
để
discover.
các em vô sự sinh hai
You know,
thì
Kavia actually visited ACE. That's Kavia.
là thêm một số
And
nữa,
this
thêm một
is
số nữa này.
the chairman of ACE with
Không thêm xuống
minister
là
in charge
cái tất
of
cả từ kia mày.
entrepreneurship,
Nhưng
minister
mà
of
thêm xuống nữa là
and she
nhưng mà
took part in a short overseas
slide sau kia.
on innovation and entrepreneurship. And of course, she also signed up for some competitions on entrepreneurship. So she has actually started developing or getting interested in innovation and entrepreneurship very early in her early days. And this is actually in addition to her full-time diploma. But the Greek box, her innovation, the Greek box wasn't started at the point in time because she was basically exposed to different ideas, different ways of doing entrepreneurship, the skill sets and mindsets required to do entrepreneurship. And then in her second year, that's when she joined our boot camp. And at the boot camp, of course, they did ideation and they tried out different ideas with the mentors at the boot camp. And from there, she landed on the Greek box and took the Greek box to the Entrepreneur Immersion Program. Okay, so the physical box that you saw in the video just now, the physical box was actually built using our IDEA project fund. Also, we actually helped her buy some of the components, and then some of the work was actually done in Makerspace. Okay. That box actually included the electronic lock, and that was actually built by her at Makerspace. Of course, the parts and components were bought using the IDEA project fund. And of course, subsequently, Kavia went on to take part in Collect competition. Collect stands for Polytechnics and ITE. That's a vocational institute in Singapore. And she actually took part in that competition. She also took part in the EveryTech convention. And of course, the IDEA competition. And I think she came in second IDEA competition. The most exciting thing that happened to Kavia was that she actually took part in an overseas externship. This is a short internship program of 2 weeks in Shenzhen, China. It was particularly meaningful for her because she shared with us that she saw the factory of the world. You know how Shenzhen is in terms of making components, building products, and so on. So this is really a Kavia's journey, and you can see the multiple touch points between the Office of Entrepreneurship and Development and the ecosystem partners along Kavia's entrepreneurial journey with us. Today, Kavia is still with us. We have invited her back a few times to do fireside chats, to talk to the younger students about her entrepreneurial journey and so on. And she's now pursuing her degree in what was the degree? Kavia is now doing a degree program in the School of Social Sciences, Singapore University of Social Sciences, in data analytics. Also, her startup has to take a back seat, but that's okay with us. As I mentioned, achievements come in different ways, and then the students or young ladies, they do have their preferences in different things. And I think Kavia did share with us that her parents are very determined. Parents are very determined that she gets a degree. Also, I think it's something that we have to respect. And but she's still involved with us, and we're happy that she's still involved with us. Okay. So second case study, totally different profile. Okay. This is from Mandy. Okay. Let's watch her video first.
Bên có hướng dẫn mà mới có làm. Thì bên có hướng dẫn làm thêm slide vào mà.
Em hướng dẫn chỉnh chất lượng video. Em có bé thử cái nào.
This is Mandy. She's the co-founder of Khách.
Ít nhất có được 1080.
I'm Mandy, the CEO and co-founder of Khách. We are all about just 2 words, which is good. We produce omega-3 fish fat sustainably using our patented stem cell technology, and that also means that we do not have to kill animals anymore for our texture and nutrition purposes. I'm from today at 19. Intaca is actually the first and the only company working on the fish fat. The Republic Party government has lots of help for startup on connection. They have always created new events, workshops to help us improve our skills. Every time when we meet, they always listening and offering different kind of solution. My dream and hope for impact
Có setting, anh kêu là vô setting, xong là kéo cái vô chỗ cái video sẽ thấy cái hộp thoại drop down á. Có là drop down
Không cái chỉnh luôn.
ai nhắc mình đang làm em nghĩ là được cho nó vấn đề chứ nào
Giải này vâng có đây đúng mà
cái kích thước màn hình mà
cái màn hình mà
Okay, Mandy is actually a very good person. This morning in our event at the Agri-Food Innovation Week in Singapore, our Minister for Environment was actually talking to her.
cái
So I
là
was
cái
taking
này
some
này
pictures
chị lên làm
of
theo
the stuff.
cái
And
thông số là
what is
40 cho 20 nhân 20 cho 4 ca
in fact, just recently, last
Thì tắt
month,
sai lại.
myself and Wani, we were
lại
in Tokyo,
chia
Japan,
sẻ lính hết
because Mandy's startup Impact Fed
Không tạm dừng áo tạm dừng
raised an investment. They managed to secure an investment with a Tokyo group of investors. Toyoseka, Japanese, One Ventures, Independent Japan. So this event was widely reported
chỉnh được
từ
Straits Times, Singapore investors, and that's how they actually started talking and finally resulted in
đáng sai
investment
tròn này nhé
which was signed
sai tròn
last month. Okay?
không chỉnh được
They actually paid attention to her when she won the first prize in the International Pitching Competition of Asia Pacific Agri-Food Innovation Summit 2024. This was in Marina Bay Sands in Singapore.
sao mà mình
So Mandy,
lấy được nó
and,
cái ngoài mà ai hơi bị xịn
Mandy's journey is slightly different
nhưng mà phải
from
biết chỉnh nó
Kalia.
chỉnh sáng
And you notice
tại vì
here,
là những cái đợt em đi quay là
Mandy
nhiều
started
mình ngược sáng là ăn tối
way earlier.
Không, nhưng mà
If I remember
có
correctly,
dài cái
she
nối
told us she graduated
nối máy
in
tính đúng không
2015.
đúng rồi
dài
On
giống này
2015. So that's almost 10 years
có kết
ago.
nối rồi
Whereas Kalia graduated in
có mic
2015.
có mic
So this is
đúng rồi
10 years
lấy
difference.
cái mic này cắm
And Mandy did not
có cái đầu là được
actually do the
cái
startup
này
rất là biệt
when she was Republic Poly. But of course, she was exposed to the problem-based learning. She was exposed to the,
không nhưng mà họ làm bằng cái
the
gọc
way
thôi
that
liên quan đến cái sự kiện chỉ
small group discussions and pitching, so-called presentations and so on.
để
And
không còn hướng dẫn khác hơn
she only did her startup. Okay, so after Republic Polytechnic, after she got her diploma, in Republic Polytechnic, she actually went on to a university. Or she went on to a university to do a business degree.
anh còn hướng dẫn mà chỉnh đầu ra anh kìa chỉnh đầu ra
She graduated
trong
from
cái
the
chỗ
School
mà
of
học
Applied
đó
Science in her field,
chỗ nào
and then she went on to a business degree, and it is from there that she discovered her passion for
anh
business.
chỉnh được không ta
And from there, after she got a degree in business,
cái đầu tiên thêm điểm
she actually went on to work for somebody. She was she's also certified as a I think what
công hình dài đúng không ạ
coffee taster, something like that. She's
tốc độ
certified
tốc độ bit của
international
video
expert in
là 6.000 kilobyte
tasting, something like that. Okay? So she has been involved in the food industry for a while before she actually founded this startup together with a scientist in A-Star. A-Star is the agency of science, technology and
setting đây thôi nằm ở setting đây thôi
cái video đó trong cái video
this is
là chỉnh nó
the
mà
most
không nó hóa
this is a place where you find the most science and technology scientists.
Blinken off này
đầu ra của video
Besides the
là
university. So you realize that Impact Fed
không
đầu ra nữa
not
thì mới
only
đạt được
incubated
cái video
RP because Mandy is
năng
our online,
năng suất tại vì là mình đang live nên
Impact Fed is also incubated in A-Star incubation and also incubated in NUS Enterprise.
đúng không ạ
Because as they
đúng rồi mà không hình như là
develop the product, which is a patented fish fat, they try to commercialize it through NUS Enterprise.
Okay.
So actually, you will see in Mandy's example,
tức là
right?
đang ra thì không
It's a point that I made about being inclusive in terms of the way of ecosystem support. And the involvement for Mandy, is really some of the programs, activities, and so on and so forth. But she really did her startup only after many years after she graduated. Okay? And of course, she reconnected with RP, and we welcomed her back into the ecosystem. and then we created opportunities and platforms for her to network. Today, like Kavya, Mandy is one of our strongest supporters in terms of coming back to give, to share with our students her experiences, fireside chats, and more importantly, because of recent investment and securing and investment, looking more for commercialization, so we supported her with the EPIC Project Fund. Okay? And we are happy that today she has actually achieved quite a lot. On the schemes, we call it industry attachment scheme. And in this case, the beautiful thing for the startup is that actually the startup don't have to pay Dr. Hamid's salary. Well, the salary is actually borne by Republic Polytechnic. And Dr. Hamid actually works in the startup for 1 day out of 5 days for every week for a period of 6 months. How long and how much time to spend every week, all this is discussed and negotiated between Dr. Hamid's school and the startup. So it varies depending on the nature of the work that is required. And of course, the value to Republic Polytechnic for Dr. Hamid's attachment, right, is that he brings back the latest in the industry, so that some of these learnings can be translated into sharing with the students through curriculum. Okay? Yeah, so this was the part of the program that we provided for Mandy and many other agri-food startups. This is our agri-food tech incubation program. We have run it for altogether 5 years. So this year, the 5th year, is actually a homecoming. That means all the past champions and all the past finalists, right? They actually set up in Marina Bay Sands at the exhibition and they showcase their product. Okay, but for the 5 years, we have actually reached out and connected with more than 42 startups, and 8 of them come from the region, as far away as Mongolia, participated in this startup. And it's a 3 months program, 6 workshops, many networking sessions. Sometimes we include overseas trip. One group of them actually came to Da Nang to look at the agriculture here. Then there will be a demo day at the end of the program where they will pitch for the top prize of 30,000 that is supported by Enterprise Singapore. Okay, but of course, in this case, Republic Polytechnic being the organizer of this incubation program, we will have to talk to Enterprise Singapore and persuade them to support the event because of the value that it brings to the whole ecosystem. Okay? And typically, over the 3 days at the Agri-Food International Agri-Food Week, okay, our booth to attract more than 10,000 visitors. And so it gives the startups a lot of publicity and a lot of prominence. Okay? You see the top left-hand corner, the man with the mic. Okay? I will talk about him a little bit later. Okay? His name is Jeffrey. I'll talk about him a little bit later. Okay? So he gave very good advice to the startups. Now, case study number 3, also a very interesting case study, slightly different, because in this case, Ms. Vivian Lee, the CEO and co-founder of GoMama, she wasn't our full-time diploma students. She's actually one of our adult learners, a part-time student. Okay? So she came to RP, took up some of our part-time courses, okay? And then when she found out that we have actually a very good startup support ecosystem in RP, she decided to also join us as a startup. And let's hear from Vivian what she does.
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm the co-founder of GoMama. We are a social enterprise dedicated to supporting nursing moms who are on the go through our wayfinding app and our education talks. GoMama was born out of passion to support breastfeeding mothers in Singapore. We recognize the challenges that many mothers face in finding suitable nursing spaces while on the go and experience the challenges firsthand. And I feel strongly that change is needed in Singapore, where more than 50% of our workforce is women. We need greater awareness of this societal issue to help women thrive in both their personal and professional lives. In our early days, we collaborated with Republic Polytechnic Office of Entrepreneurship Development, voted by the this phase to develop our first prototype and also have access to domain experts who help us navigate the complexity of launching a novel product. Being part of the Republic Polytechnic ecosystem has provided us with exposure to potential overseas partners who are interested in our solution. Today, Go has partnered with various agencies and corporates to deploy more pods into the community as well as workspaces. We leverage the EPIC grant to explore these opportunities with a partner in Vietnam. As an impact founder, I'm driven by the change that we create and the lives that we touch, so that when the going gets tough, your passion will fuel your perseverance. I think the whole company, we are very aligned on wanting to support mothers, inspire our team to keep moving forward.
So you've heard what Vivian does. She builds application board. In fact, the idea of her business idea, Vivian's business idea, was born out of a NUS program, National University of Singapore's program. So she actually started her business journey, so to speak, in National University of Singapore. But after the venture builder program in NUS, when she wanted to bring it further and develop the MVP, develop the prototype, the support from NUS was quite different. Because NUS, I think their focus is more on deep science and deep tech, whereas hers is more of a community, social kind of innovation. So that was when she also discovered our courses, and she also discovered our strengths in terms of our industry partnership. In her case, she wanted to improve the air quality of the lactation pod. And she also wanted to allow the lactation pods to be able to do self-sanitization. Okay? And this is when she actually collaborated through an industry collaboration agreement with our School of Engineering lecturers, School of Engineering experts, okay, to help her improve the overall comfort, I should say, and the overall design and look and feel, and the comfort of the lactation pods. So, in fact, the first prototype, what you see in this picture, that's actually not the first prototype. This is actually in her office. Okay? But if you observe in the video, right, there was actually a prototype in the makerspace. That was actually the first prototype that she built, and she built it in makerspace in RP. Okay? And she had guidance from technical experts in RP. The man on her left, okay, in black, that's Tim. He's our expert in engineering, particularly specializing in mobility systems, okay, but also expert in IoT systems, which was why he was involved in this whole project. Of course, the collaboration with Mama allowed them to have access to funding. She talked about, Vivian talked about Epic Fund, mentorship, and networking opportunities as well. Okay. What has Mandy achieved so far? I think this one I will start from the left-hand side. Vivian actually has been recognized by the Singapore Women's Network. Okay, she's listed as under 40, Prestige 40 under 40. Okay? Recognition for her innovation and social impact in supporting breastfeeding mothers. And she has garnered a lot of attention from our political leaders. So in the center photo, this is when Mama launched the SG60 pods. Singapore, as you know, is celebrating its 60th birthday this year. So we had a series of things, and Mama actually launched the SG60 pods. And the lady in black, she's actually Miss Indrani Raja, our minister in the Prime Minister's office. So she came to the launch of the event and supported the launch. Of course, having our political leaders supporting the startups, right, means the startups can actually open doors easier, because it lends a lot of credibility to the startup's purpose and to the startup's authenticity. Okay. And as she started with, as Vivian started with Republic Polytechnic and built her first prototype, and from that first prototype, she showed that prototype to potential customers in Singapore, and it was then that she launched 5 lactation pods in Sentosa in 2021. She started from 5 lactation pods in 2021 in Sentosa. Okay? And today she's actually has 100 talks across Singapore. Vivian talked about meeting a potential Vietnam partner in a video. Yeah, it was when our Vietnamese partners visited us in Republic Poly and saw the lactation port. The Vietnamese partner was quite keen. This partner was from Ho Chi Minh, and this partner was quite keen and wanted to work with Vivian to bring the lactation ports into Ho Chi Minh. But after discussing with her mentors, Vivian felt that they were not ready. Because those were early days. They didn't have 100 ports in Singapore. So Vivian felt that they were not ready, and they decided to focus in Singapore first. Okay, focus in Singapore first. And of course, once you are able to concentrate and dominate a certain domestic market, it becomes a lot easier for the startup to survive. And today, Vivian has actually received 6-figure funding from an angel investor, which is why they took up an office, in the Block 71. And you can, if you visit Singapore at Block 71, you can actually see Goma in Block 71. Okay. So I think I mentioned, one of the things that we actually will encourage our startup founders to do is to give back to the community. Give back to the community not only in terms of the RP students, but also in many other situations. For example, giving back to the community can also be in the form of sharing their experiences with and overseas ecosystem partners. So when we asked Mandy and another startup founder called Kenneth to come to Vietnam, Da Nang, and share their startup, they quite happily actually came along with us. Okay? So that's something that we want our startup founders to do, to continue this thing of giving back to the community. I'm not sure whether you noticed in the videos, right? The startup founders, they all talked about impact. They all talked about creating impact in the community, creating impact, touching the lives of breastfeeding mothers and so on. But none of them actually talked about how much money they make and so on and so forth. So it is actually the ecosystem builders us that we are actually keeping track of some of these other things for them. For them, it's really about making the difference, and I think this is where they will become more successful. Okay, then it comes to the we come to the last part of the sharing. Okay, this part is about building a vibrant innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Okay, this is actually one of the most interesting and most difficult, I would say, thing to do. Why do I say that? Because it takes a lot of patience. But unfortunately, many of us, especially my teammates and me, when we work in the Office of Entrepreneurship Development, things that we do, sometimes our bosses will ask, right, what is your KPI? When can you do this? What is your timeline? These are the usual questions for people who are working for organizations. Interestingly, as I joined them when the office was set up in 2021, my message to the team was very simple. My message to the team was that we have to keep doing the right thing, okay, and believe that it will happen. And if you are worried about what you're going to achieve end of this year, right, then focus on a time frame of 3 to 5 years. Because ecosystem building is not about 1 year. It's not a 100 meters race. It's actually a journey. And unfortunately, if we start the wrong footing, and everything that we do is short term, it will spiral downwards. Because your partners will feel that you are actually doing this because of your KPI. The startups will know that you are actually looking at your KPI. But if we are doing real ecosystem building, then I think it's all about looking at what are the shared objectives of the different stakeholders in the ecosystem. So if I may, over the 3 to 5 years, we have actually made connections with many ecosystem players in Singapore as well as beyond. Of course, different categories, you'll find that we have listed the education partners here, including NUS, NTU, Temasek Polytechnic, Singapore Polytechnic, and so on and so forth. Okay? We consider them partners because there are situations, and it's real. There are situations when our startups need help, okay? But we don't have expertise in public body. I think in this morning I actually shared what are some of the areas of expertise, areas of focus in the public polytechnic. Okay? But there are some other areas that the expertise may lie in another polytechnic, and therefore we will actually introduce our startups to those ecosystem partners or those education partners. Okay? Trade associations, of course, like the ACE. So when Mr. An organized this session, for example, he suggested to us that one of the areas that may be interesting to the audience is Singapore's startup ecosystem. Then it occurred to me that the Republic Polytechnic is not the best person to talk about the Singapore ecosystem. It's better for ACE to come, which was why we invited ACE, and I'm so happy to see Desmond here for the first time. Please continue to invite him so that they come here more often. And of course, we have other trade associations, Escape, that focuses on youth, even SME centers and so on. Okay, there are some interesting names on the venture capital list of venture capitalists here. Okay? They are venture capitalists quite different, some of them. Okay? Some of them actually focuses on early stage. Some of them actually looking at Series A and beyond. Okay? But for most of us, it is actually more at the early stage VCs. Okay? Our relationship with Golden Equator, for example, we may actually invite them to come to sharing session with the startups and talk about how venture capitalists, how VCs look at investment, how VCs look at startups. And I think that's useful for the startups because it helps to put the startups in the mind frame of the venture capitalists, and therefore be sensitive to what are the things that the VCs may be looking for. Government agencies are very important. To put it very simply, you see the different government agencies here. Of course, the biggest connection that we have is with Enterprise Singapore, because they are the ones that's overseeing the startup ecosystem in Singapore. And many of the grants and many of the competition prizes and even policies, they will actually come to ask the polytechnics. They will actually consult the polytechnics when they are coming up with new policies to support startups. What about some of these other agencies? They actually promote certain sectors. So, for example, the National Environment Agency actually promote the sustainability sector, the climate sector. So they also come up with certain prizes, come up with certain policy support for startups that's focused in those areas. And the way that I share with our startups is actually quite straightforward. I will put it to them this way. Some of them will come to us and say, it's so difficult to get the government officials. When they send in the email to any of the government agencies, right? The typical comment from the startup founders, right, is that it takes years. It takes years for them to respond. Actually, I know that government agencies try to respond as fast as they can. So I usually will tell them, if you're writing into the let's say for example Enterprise Singapore, right? Can you imagine how many startup founders are writing to the Enterprise Singapore? So the officer that's in charge of startup, right, may have, or the so-called helpline, the inbox may actually have a few hundred emails, a few hundred inquiries. Okay? So we will actually tell the startups, join our ecosystem, so that if there's something not straightforward, we can advise you. Because we are in touch with the policies, we are updated with the policy, we can update you. Okay? If there's something that we don't know and we really need to ask the agencies, okay, we will send an email for you. Okay, we will actually forward an email. And when the government office sees the email from the Republic Polytechnic, I think chances are that they will open up the Republic Polytechnic email faster than the startup email. Also, that's how we actually facilitate our startups, help startups in some of these agencies. And of course, technology partners, Google, AWS, Alibaba Cloud, they are fighting all the time. One doesn't want another one. If Google is there, Google doesn't want Alibaba. Alibaba is there, Alibaba doesn't want AWS. For us, we don't care. we actually ask them, what are you offering for my students? They say, oh, AWS is giving a bit more, no, go AWS. So, and because we are a government agency, we are an educational institution, I think the industry partners understand. Well, not all the time, we will log in with any one of them. Any one of them come to me and say, give me exclusive. I look at their face, I ask them, do you think I can give you exclusive? I can't give you exclusive. So you just have to work with whatever the Singapore government is, designed to, which in our case is actually offering the best deal for startups and for students. Okay? So this is actually a quick glance at the ecosystem partners. Of course, there will be more, and we have not included our overseas partners. We have included BISC, but we hope to put some of your universities here and expand the ecosystem together. Okay. This is our mentorship scheme. Okay, we call it the entrepreneurship community mentorship scheme. So listed in this slide are all the mentors with us. Okay, they are made up from different profile. So we have leaders on the top left hand corner. This gentleman from SIT, the Singapore Institute of Technology, is one of our 5 universities. He's Professor Yaakob Ibrahim. He was an ex-cabinet minister. Also, he's a very senior person in Singapore. Almost everybody in the government will know him. Okay, he's an ex-cabinet minister, and it's very important because when you have somebody who is wise, okay, and knows the system quite well, he will be able to give you very good advice. So, Prof is very helpful, and he has been giving very good advice to startups like GoMama. Because GoMama, in some cases, they were wondering whether they can put their application forms in government premises or in Muslim religious venues, mosques. And he's also a senior in the Muslim community, so you can actually advise them there. So we have a group of people. And of course, Professor Yaakob Ibrahim, let's not forget, he's also chairman of a VC firm. Also, he has a group of people that's doing investment. Okay? And we have leaders in the industry like Mr. Roger Chiu, second from your left, the second man from the top. He's actually a leader in the logistics industry. Roger is very interesting. So he was previously mentoring one of our startups. And what he did was he actually saw the potential of the startup from the logistics industry standpoint, and he introduced that startup to one of the logistics giants in Singapore. And it resulted, finally, over a period of time, it resulted in that logistics giant acquiring the startup. So the startup founders got a nice exit from that. Okay? And of course, we also have people who run family offices. We have Mr. Harish, Ms. Katrina, Mr. Paul Singh. They actually run family offices. This is where they manage their family's wealth. Okay? And family offices are very good for early stage startups because of this is their own family money, and they usually look at early stage investment instead of those Series A, Series B type. Unless the family office is very big. Okay? We have venture capitalists like Fahad, Meet Ventures. Jeffrey, the gentleman with the mic just now, Jeffrey runs MSW Ventures. MSW Ventures stands for Mental Software Ventures. And I will share with you something about Jeffrey later, so just hold on a little bit more. Leo Hojenvi, also a venture capitalist. But we also have a group of people here, this part. I think you saw Ben Liu in the video. You saw Mandy, you saw Vivian. There are a few others like James, Eunice, Nelson. These are startup founders. They are startup founders that have achieved some successes. So we love to have them in the ecosystem because they can actually share with the new startups or with our students their experiences and the way we run the way we manage our mentors. Interesting point to take note is that we actually don't assign the mentors to the startups. It's interesting. Never heard of that. all the polytechnics or universities, when they have a mentor scheme, right, they will assign the mentor to the startup. So for us, we don't do that because this is my own analysis and perspective. Okay? It takes many things to gel before the mentor can be actually helping the startups. Okay? Expertise is just one of the many things. Okay? But what we think we know about the startup or the mentor, often we don't know. What do I mean? Someone in the logistics industry, someone senior like Mr. Roger Chu in the logistics industry is not only good in logistics. He can be good in many other things. Okay? And he has also his friends and his network. So rather than trying to pretend that Mr. Roger Chu can definitely be useful to a logistics startup, I prefer not to make that judgment, and I will leave it open. But what we will do at the Office of Entrepreneurship Development is that we will curate networking opportunities, we will introduce them, but we will not assign them. Because when I assign the startup to the mentor, it's very difficult for other mentors to come in. It's very difficult for the startups to also go to other mentors because they must be conscious that this is the mentor. But actually, it doesn't work that way. Only for students that we have mentors. But the student mentor is quite different from the startup mentor. So for our mentorship scheme, we actually don't assign mentors. We create opportunities for them to come together, for them to network, and so on and so forth. And the most interesting observation that I've made in the last 3 or 4 years, because many people have asked me, why don't you assign mentors? And when we invite new mentors to the scheme, they will always ask us, which startups am I supposed to advise? So we always tell them, let's see lah. We leave it to how the connections connect, how the dots connect. We leave it to how the dots connect. Don't need to force. One of the interesting observations that I made over the years as we grow this ECMS scheme is that it actually also takes a lot of chemistry for the startup founder and the mentor to click. It is very interesting because startup founders are, if I use the word, startup founders are quite weird sometimes, or they can be quite eccentric, or they have their own way of looking at things, they have their own way of wanting to do things. And sometimes the logical thinking cannot persuade them. You need somebody that can connect with them before the person can persuade them. So it's a bit similar to how the members of my team, right, are assigned to the startups. So we do have a contact point for all the startups to the Office of Entrepreneurship Development. Okay? And we don't divide by industry, we don't divide by groupings. We just see who can get along with who best. In a way, it's a little bit of chaos, but it's actually ordered chaos, if I may put it that way. Also, so the team members know what they're supposed to do, and every startup will actually have one or two, usually two, persons who can talk to them. It's like me, but I'm usually, I usually don't have the kind of bandwidth to go into detail for what the startup is doing. Okay, so the ECMS scheme, this is something if you are thinking of growing mentorship in your institution. Something mindful that you may want to think about. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I think you're in the best position to look at your situation and whether assignment, non-assignment, or hybrid model is better for you. Okay? And of course, I should also introduce Mr. Tan from InnoLab. He's our first Vietnamese mentor. He has very kindly agreed to join us as a mentor to support our startups who want to venture into Vietnam. Again, we did not assign any startups to them. We will create opportunities for them to meet, for them to talk, and hopefully, we will connect. Okay. Now, I talked about creating events, networking events, opportunities for startups to meet with mentors, to meet with other startups, and so on. So these are some examples. We co-organize workshops with the SME Center, okay? And more than 60 participants actually joined us for this event and learned about what SME Center can do for them. We also have sharing sessions, networking sessions for our startups. It really depends on what you find the best way to allow the startups to talk to the mentors freely, or for the mentors to get to know the startups better. Now I'm going to talk about Jeffrey. Okay? Jeffrey is the man in the center on the photograph there. Okay? So one of the important things for a startup ecosystem, because of the work that we do, and because you usually have to wait for a long time before you have a unicorn coming out from an ecosystem. Singapore took 24 years and we have 55 unicorns. Okay? But those coming up maybe from NUS, they start maybe some. Yeah. But from at the polytechnic level to have a unicorn is actually not going to be so easy. I will be first to say that. Okay? But we celebrate successes, okay, big or small. So in this case, it is by no means a small success. Okay? Jeffrey, through his investment fund, Asia Fund X and Asia Fund 2, invested in these two boys. I call them boys because when Jeffrey invested in them, they were just fresh graduate from Singapore Management University. Okay, that was about 10 years ago. And Jeffrey invested in them, and he shared with me the story because Jeffrey and I were classmates in secondary school and junior college. We were classmates for a long time. So we caught up with each other, and then he shared with us, this story. He invested in them, these two boys, more than 10 years ago. The main factor that he looked at in the startups wasn't the business model. It wasn't the problem solution fit, because for those of you who are familiar with SGAT, they are not even addressing a problem. They were addressing a need. Young people like to do memes. Yeah, in Singapore, like to do memes, but it wasn't even a problem, so to speak. If they are not around, life goes on, so to speak. But this is something that can be associated. The young people can associate with. But Jeffrey invested in them because he assessed them to be people of good character. Very interesting. He told me the main consideration was that they are good chaps. Okay? And he laid down a few rules for them. Okay? Rules such as, if you make a mistake, be the first to say sorry. If you screw up, own up. Okay? Basically rules about being a decent founder, being a decent human being, and being a decent founder. And then he guided them all the way for 10 years. He invested in them when the startup was valued at 10 million. Okay? He was a seed investor, and subsequently he went in with a second round. In his second round of investment, he brought in notable funds like Capital. Capital is actually a vehicle under Temasek, Singapore Temasek. Also, the big boys came in. Okay? And last week, this was actually last week, that came out in Singapore as big news. Okay? Because of the startup climate is actually quite difficult nowadays. Okay? But it came out in Singapore as big news. Okay? SGAT was acquired by a French marketing company called Publicis. Okay? Publicis Group bought them. Okay? It says undisclosed sum. Of course, I have the number. It goes to 300 million US dollars. Okay? So, the investment for the VC, okay? The investment for the VC is actually 30 times over a period of 10 years. Not bad, not bad. Like I said, it's not like the test view, the century, but it is something that is worth sharing. From the point of view that as an ecosystem builder, Jeffrey is part of the ecosystem. The startups are not incubated in public body. Okay? But Jeffrey is part of the ecosystem of public polytechnic. So when our VC achieves success, we celebrate. And this is how we think, celebrating successes, big or small. For us, we call it greater me success. Yeah, the greater me impact thing. Okay? Will actually energize the ecosystem. And from time to time, we do need to energize the ecosystem with success stories. Okay? Celebrate successes together so that some vibrancy, and then we will take it to greater heights. Okay, so this is the story that I wanted to share with you from Jeffrey. Of course, after making a lot of money for the investors, now everybody is going after him. as in real time now, everybody is going after him to ask him to set up the fund. I promise Mr. An, I will try to bring him to Navas next year during the Navas in Na'an. And let's see what he says, because all the investors are going after him to ask him to set up another fund. They are all happy that he made money for them, so they want him to set up another fund. His wife is asking him to retire, so let's see. Okay. So having shared a lot about our startup success stories, all the different startups ecosystem partners that we have, what is the approach? What is the underlying approach that we actually do? How do we actually describe our way of building an ecosystem? I will use these three words: connecting the dots. Okay? If you visit Republic Polytechnic, you will see this background. You will see this mural wall at Epic. We actually have this mural wall at Epic. And the name of the mural wall, this is where Minister Chan Chee-seng, this is where our minister actually launched the ecosystem. And the name of the mural wall is called Connecting the Dots. And why Connecting the Dots? Because this is a little bit philosophical, but bear with me. Because three elements of connecting the dots. We don't choose which dot to connect. We don't say this is a good dot, this is not a good dot. We are just inclusive. So this is one thing. We are very inclusive. Okay? But the second element of the philosophical approach, right, is a win-win. Every time we want to connect a dot, right, don't think what they can do for us. Think what we can do for them. Okay, so we like to think win-win. And we try to be as supportive as we can within the resources that we have. Okay? And of course, one of the key points is actually the whole ecosystem. In terms of supporting our industry partners, supporting our startups, supporting our students, supporting our VCs, everybody. So it's not just a case of I build this ecosystem to benefit the startup. It cannot be, because it won't last. It has to be an ecosystem for all the stakeholders, for the polytechnic, for the students, for the startups, for the VCs, for the industry partners, for other government agencies, for even my partner educational institution. It has to be an ecosystem that benefits everybody in big ways or in small ways, but it has to be, philosophically, it has to benefit everybody. Okay? And I want to leave this quote with you because it is actually what I mean about being patient and taking a longer term time frame. Okay? Steve Jobs, the famous Steve Jobs, said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. And this is very interesting to me. Okay? Because what it means is that today as we try to design our, for example, mentorship scheme, okay? We don't try to assign the mentors, because the truth is that I don't know whether the dots are the right dots. The truth is that as I connect with this ecosystem partner, I cannot be looking at whether I will benefit from the connection, because that is also again not quite right in terms of but I don't know whether this connection is going to work. It's only when I look back at some of the connections, okay, then I realize, because we put Mandy, because we invited Mandy to present at the International Agri-Food Festival, and she caught the attention of the Japanese investors, and then the Japanese investors went in further to look at her startup and decided to finally make an investment. That was how it was connected. But did I plan for that? The truth is I didn't. So somehow you need to have this faith, it's almost religious. You need to have this faith to believe that somehow the dots will connect, but connect in the future. Okay? And with that, I would like to end the sharing. I hope it's useful, although the last part was a little bit more philosophical. And since I quoted Steve Jobs, I thought I also share another quote. This one is from Albert Einstein. Okay? Albert Einstein, I think all of you know him, needs no description. Albert Einstein once said, logic can take you from A to Z. But creativity, right, or take you beyond. So we don't know what we don't know, so we don't want to pretend that we know, and which means that when startups come to us, right, we always keep an open mind. But when we build the ecosystem, right, we always keep an open mind. I think that's important, but it's actually quite difficult for public officers like us. When we work with the government, if I tell my boss that, he will look at me and say, "You think I'm giving you a free check?" Kind of thing, So, but I'm glad that we have very supportive bosses at Republic Polytechnic, and we have very good ecosystem partners, in Singapore and beyond, in Na'ang as well. So, with that, I thank you for spending time with us. Thank you. Okay, we want to hold you back, but if you do have questions, please feel free to ask, and then I will try my best. And also, if you have questions for Desmond, don't be kind. Just shoot. He's still around and he will help.
And the MC will start the panel discussion.
Xin cảm ơn những công việc của ông điều viên Pia. Kính thưa quý vị, thì chương trình sẽ đến với phần thảo luận hợp tác phát triển hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp Đà Nẵng. Thì đây sẽ là dịp mà chúng ta có thể đưa ra các ý tưởng để xây dựng và phát triển hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp và sáng tạo trên địa bàn thành phố. Xin mời tất cả quý vị và các bạn chúng ta cùng đưa ra những ý tưởng cũng như là đặt câu hỏi cho các chuyên gia đến từ Singapore mà chúng ta đồng hành với. Xin mời các anh chị ra câu hỏi ạ. Xin mời đại diện các trường ạ.
As you are thinking through your questions, we do welcome you to come to Singapore and visit ACE, I think I spoke on that, and also to visit the Republic Polytechnic. We also welcome any suggestions on collaboration between our students, all our startups. So that's something that we're always looking for. And if you have any ideas, please let us know. You can get our contact easily from Mr. An. If not, you just grab hold of her. Her name is Tia. She's on Zalo. So grab hold of her and exchange contacts.
The question for me is share the experience that we have been through. Same with RP. It requires a lot of patience and time to nurture this kind of entrepreneurship mindset experience. 2 years ago, when we started our own program, all students they said, one more course, one more subject to pass at university. So when we asked them to have an idea of a startup or business, they all went for a coffee shop or a place where they can import some phone cases from China and then sell it here and there to make some good profit. And they can make profit after 2 or 3 months. And we had to the lecturers and I had to went to a lot of discussion with students so they can think further, they can think in the long term. Startups doesn't have to make profit straight away. They can go 1 or 2 years losing money, then they can make profit later. And so now after 2 years, we start having some good projects that focus on technology and innovation, and they can have the pathway to make money after a year now. But how do you persuade the boss or the board of directors at RP to have long-term KPI? Because after a year, and we have to report, and when we look at the report, no startup, no sales, no profit, no nothing. Only some ideas from students. So how do you persuade the boss to have a kind of long-term mindset, maybe 3 to 5 years, to get some results from startup? Because that's what we are now facing. When we look at the report at the end of the year, not much to report to the boss, and we spend a lot of money on that process.
This is a very good question. I think it's something that people like us face all the time. The bosses needs to see results, but certain things needs time to build. I suppose I can use the analogy of a football team. You have your first team, your football team that has to score goals, has to win competitions. But at the same time, you also have a development team that's building. So in the Office of Entrepreneurship Development, we try to strike a balance between programs and activities that can show immediate results. But at the same time, we are conscious that we explain clearly that some programs and activities will take longer time to show results, but we do measure that in a different way. I share with you the real examples. For example, building relationship with overseas ecosystem partners. We hope to benefit our students. We hope to benefit our staffs. But how do we measure that? How much time do we need? So as we are building that, and we are still in the midst of doing so, as we are building that, one of the indicators, one of the KPIs that we show our bosses is how many times do we go overseas? How many potential ecosystem partners do we meet? And of course, you have to give the names and give the profiles, a bit of introduction on who are these potential ecosystem partners. So these are what I call the outputs, KPIs. They are not the outcomes, but they are the outputs. They are KPIs, the short-term KPIs that we look at. And having that conversation with our boss, who is very understanding, helps. So of course, if you remember the graph that I showed, when we first started off, we don't have many successful startups. But over time, we actually achieved some successes, and that helped us to win our bosses' confidence and trust. And therefore, today, I think we are in a better position to actually do a little bit more longer-term strategic development work. And because of our track record, we have our bosses' support to do continue to do the development and the strategic development work that we need to do in order to really make the ecosystem even more exciting and even more vibrant. I'll be the first one to admit that as I look at our Republic Polytechnic ecosystem, there are many areas that we can improve. And as I come to this kind of sharing sessions and so on, please let me know also, if there are things that you do, that you may want to share your experiences, and we can also learn from you. Also, it's really a case of learning from each other. And the problems that we face, I found that our friend from FT University, right, also have some similar problems. So it's common, and we all learn together, as all part of the big ecosystem. Builders, we learn and we enjoy together.
I just want to comment on your effort to persuade the students to commit with the ideas. Just in Vietnam, last week I was the judge for startup pitching competition, and all of them are students, but they only stop ideas. So some groups, they had these ideas 3 years ago. They developed the prototype, but for the last 3 years they only went to pitching, and they did not develop it to a real product to commercialize it. And I asked them, what stopped you ideas? And they said they only think of this as a competition. They didn't really have the mindset of making money from it. And some other groups, they have they develop the technology in the lab, but then they saw that they did not really develop into commercial products. So, how did you persuade people like Mandy or the one to really commit on the ideas? Because otherwise they're going to stop at the ideas only.
So this is very interesting because actually we don't. Yes, because if the student has a very good idea, we think this is this idea potentially can become a great startup, okay? And we can share with them our views and our mentors come in. The student is not ready. The student doesn't want to carry on. The student is not ready, and forcing it is not going to create success. So actually, Mandy, I didn't persuade Mandy. We give suggestions, we give ideas, but it's for the startup founder. If I can share with you another story. This is a real story, of course. This gentleman, Damien Sia, motorist. This gentleman, Damien Sia, he's the guy that raised Series A at valuation of $60 million US. He raised $6 million. That was, I think, last year. Yeah, 2024. Okay. I met Damien when I first joined the Office of Information Development. He was one of our students who has a startup that is doing quite well. What do I mean by quite well? Okay. His startup, at that time, his market was a Singapore market. Singapore motorist market. His startup name is called Motorist. His startup was focused on the Singapore market, targeting motorists. Okay. When I met him, he was very happy because his startup was profitable. Okay. Every month, his startup enjoys a profit of about 30 to 40,000 Singapore dollars. That's not small money because that's in addition to paying his team of about 30 to 40 staff. Okay, so after paying his team of 30 to 40 staff and after paying himself, his startup still has a profit of 30 to 40,000, which is quite impressive in fact. When I met him, it was very interesting because I asked him about his plans, okay, he actually had no plans. He's quite happy what he is doing. But coming from my training, I know that if he doesn't grow, okay, he will be eaten up. The competition is very tough in Singapore, and the Singapore motorist market is very small. Okay, in Singapore, altogether, the total number of motorists, total number of cars is about 1 million. Less than 1 million. That's how big the Singapore car market is, about 1 million cars. So I asked him, whether he has considered the Malaysian market, whether he has considered Thailand market or Vietnamese market. Okay. And he shared with me that he has thought about these markets previously, okay? But he doesn't want to take the risk of, because of his wanting to expand into these markets, he may end up his startup losing money. Okay? So I suggested to him that because his startup is already making money, and he was already invested by a small group of Singapore investors, who is actually quite happy with him. I'm not sure how happy, but quite happy with him. So I suggested to him that the Singapore market is only 1 million cars. The Malaysian market is 30 million cars. That's 30 times the market size. Okay? And of course, I don't even have to talk about Vietnam and Thailand. So he asked me, how can he go overseas, okay, without taking the risk of his startup in Singapore getting into financial trouble, because he needs money to go overseas, right? So I suggested to him that because you are making money in Singapore, okay, you have certain credibility as a business owner, and you must actually leverage this credibility. Okay? If you have plans to go overseas, okay, raise funds. And the reason for you raising funds is for overseas expansion. Your investors will prefer to take a risk with you than with any other startup that has not yet made money. So I gave him this suggestion, and that's all. I didn't do anything about it. And that's all I can do. So I gave him this suggestion based on my knowledge of the Singapore market, Malaysian market, the car market, okay? The Thailand market, the size of the market. But if you ask me, I'm not better than him in running his startup. Guess what he did? He went to Malaysia, he went to Thailand, he hasn't come to Vietnam yet. He went to Malaysia, he went to Thailand, okay? before he went to this market, he actually raised money. He raised 1.2 million Singapore dollars. He raised 1.2 million Singapore dollars from his current group of investors. At a valuation of, if I remember correctly, at that time his valuation was about 12 million or 13 million, thereabouts. Okay? He raised 1.2 million and he went overseas with these extra funds that he raised. Okay? And he went to Malaysia. He didn't quite make it in Malaysia, so he actually suffered setbacks in Malaysia. And he went to Thailand, and within 1 year, and he didn't send people to go. He, as an entrepreneur, he went himself to the market and he restarted the whole thing as a startup founder in Thailand. And after 1.5 years, because he became profitable in Thailand, he raised another round of funds in Thailand. And this time round, if I remember correctly, I think Toyota invested in him. And this was when he closed the 6 million round at 60 million valuation. So, how did we persuade the startup? No, actually we didn't. Because I cannot, and I wouldn't be able to force him to go overseas. But he decided to go himself. So it's actually in the entrepreneur's blood how big they can go. This is something very interesting from my previous lives. Before I joined the Republic Polytechnic, I was running my own startup. I raised a lot of money for my startup, so I was all over the world. But the interesting thing was one of my biggest investors shared with me, he said, Neil, you have a very good idea, you have a very good startup, and you are doing very good work. Okay? But remember, 70% of whether you're going to be a successful startup depends on up there. You can do all you can, but 70% of our life is decided up there. Again, it is very philosophical, but true enough, even though, we have achieved a lot of things, throughout the startup journey, you somehow just, that X factor just wasn't there. So there are a lot of considerations that startup founders may or may not share with us. Kavya shared with us that her mother wants her to have a degree. So between her and her mother, between me and her mother, I think it's quite clear that she will go with her mother. So we are quite conscious that as we try to be helpful to our startups, success may well be determined by, or rather, let me rephrase that. Success of the startup, or success of the startup founder, right, may well be determined by factors beyond our control. So I wouldn't, again, it is a point that I will not tell my boss. I wouldn't be too bothered if my students, need to fail first, need to fail a few times first before they can wake up and realize, or not realize, the startup is for them. So it's as I said, it's a little bit philosophical. If I talk like that, you'll find that you know what is saying talking. Talking nonsense, but it's somehow the existing, startup founders that is really beyond our control. As ecosystem builders, we can provide the platforms, we can provide the platforms, we can introduce the dots, we can connect the dots, but whether the startup founders can get along with the VC, Jeffrey managed to work with the two boys very well. They managed to achieve success, but we also know of many other failures. So, if I can quote Jeffrey, right, what he said was that these people who made money together with me asked me to start up another fund, but they forgot the times that they scolded me when the startup goes down. So that's the real life of the startup industry. But we all hope that startups can grow big and contribute to the industry, contribute back to the community at some point. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. Not directly.
We try our best to create the best environment. Really depends on the founders.
Yes.
Where we go.
Yes, totally agree with that. Yeah.
So I'm from the University of Science and Education. So in your, because you already introduced some example for students from the lab to go to the financial. And
Just one example, make us feel more in our work because as I shared for you, that in my university we have my own company. So from that we already built some startup company, yes, startup from the lab to commercial. And I hear that you have some staff from the first year student to fourth year student to embrace the education and startup. And what we want to have, what we want to ask more about another story is in our program, our curriculum, we already have the that is the course for innovation and entrepreneurship. But we want to enhance, we want to add the innovation in each course. Like for example, in each course like that, we can ask the teacher or professor to share the idea about innovation and for the innovation field. So if you have any experience for that, you can share with us. Because we want to encourage the innovation field, not for only the one course. We want to add that in every course in our program.
So maybe to share a perspective on the ecosystem, right? Of course, entrepreneurial spirit is something that the government that in Singapore has been trying to emphasize, right? I think we have been introducing like design thinking, right? In fact, I think it's going to be a course where there is regardless of your discipline, right? Design thinking will be part of the curriculum that you will go in, right? And in fact, it's going into like not even university, but also like junior college, right? Even the tertiary education, right? So it's going down to even secondary school or high school, right? Over here. So that is something that we want to nurture our youth at that point, right? To help them to understand. So even have like test grading, after design thinking, right? They even have learnings, right, to help them build like prototypes, right, to help them to be able to validate certain ideas right after design thinking. So we also have mechanism like working with the National Library Board, which is our national library, right, to kind of work together with
chất lượng
ideas or even youth.
Phải.
Right? So there's a lot of like hackathons,
Anh thấy hướng dẫn á thì cái này
build up and
cho nó phù hợp thôi, chứ
setting
không phải là chất lượng nó tăng lên.
right, that want to nurture that entrepreneurial spirit. So that they can idea, right, build fast, and thereafter test out their
Quên
solutions.
là cái nào ta?
I even know of
Chắc hẳn sẽ có đúng không? Mình phải tìm ra đúng không?
Biết chất lượng những của đồ có này chứ làm mà chất lượng
in the school itself. Right, that's where also they can able to have like
Chụp hình như hồi trước mình làm cái kia là không anh, nhưng mà năm nào thì không có đi được tại vì cái kia là cái này chẳng có là cái phần mềm để hắn like mà
Chứ em thấy nha, cái này nó bình thường vô trong YouTube là nó sẽ giảm chất lượng theo nữa này, giảm theo chất lượng này nhưng mà không hiện theo YouTube nữa.
Thành ra lại
thế mà
chị Thảo là hai em ngồi đây thì hai em có gì nó cũng về thì chị nếu mà muốn giảm sáng thì bấm ISO thôi, đừng bấm cái khác. Tăng giảm ISO, tăng ISO là sáng mà tăng giảm ISO không biết.
Anh được chụp mấy cái này anh tạo nét
thì chị tốc độ xuống chụp bằng có 1/20 giây. Chụp chậm thì hai em 1/20 giây nó bằng lại chưa kịp chụp để đưa tay.
For example,
cho tốc độ
Kavya is actually engineering design with business. So we actually introduce some technology like even if it's hospitality diploma or IT diploma. But your question is whether how do we actually introduce innovation in all the subjects, in all the courses. Maybe I will answer it in this way. We look at three types of outcomes
for the student. One is the mindset, one is the skill set, and one is the values. For the younger students, that is pre-employment students, when they come to us at 17 years old, they are still quite young. So we think we can still shape their values. We can still influence and shape their values. But for the adult learners, the part-time learners, and alumni students, realistically, we manage our expectations when it comes to shaping their values. But there's only so much we can do because they have gone through a lot in life. And we don't know whether we can still influence their values. We try, but we manage our expectations. Can put it that way. But in terms of skill sets is something that I believe in entrepreneurship, for example, in entrepreneurship, skill sets can be taught.
Phần đấu tương lai
Because
phòng
an
còn là
entrepreneur has to do
chuyên
everything.
gia là chuyên gia
So
kia.
teaching an entrepreneur about how to do proper market analysis, customer analysis, how to do product design, and so on and so forth. Some of these skill sets actually can be taught, and we do that. We do that in minor in entrepreneurship and in our entrepreneurship courses. The part that's a little bit more difficult is mindset. So we try to develop the character. We try to develop the mindset of the learner entrepreneur through sharing by alumni. We found it to be quite effective so far. One of the reasons is because as we look at the students, the students look at us as teachers. They look at us as facilitators. And every time when we talk to them, they will say the first say that, the first say this, the first say that, the facilitator say this. And the relationship is one of an equal relationship. And the usual, at least for the Singapore education system, from 7 years old all the way to 16 years old, the teacher say this, there will be an exam. The teacher say this, there will be an exam. So there's a pass, fail, there's a grade kind of thing. So when the first say this, it must be correct. The first say that it must be correct, but they don't internalize it. They will take it that this is something that the first said, but we don't want them. We want them to internalize it, especially when it comes to mindset. So what we do is we invite the alumni, we invite their big sisters and brothers, people like Mandy. And if you see Mandy's video, okay, if you see Mandy's picture, you remember one that so there was one with Mandy in her graduation gown. But when Mandy, when we invite their big sisters, that means our alumni, when we invite our alumni back to share their experiences with students, we always ask, the alumni, the startup founder, to bring photographs from their student days. So when the students look at, that was the canteen. That was, that's the classroom, that's the lab. It's the same lab that I was in. The students can feel that connection. And this big sister or big brother, the students actually look, I think the students actually look at them as, the same category. It's my senior, my big brother, my big sister. Instead of this is a facility. Facility say that, a facilitator say that, a teacher say this, teacher say that. It's different. The level is different. And therefore, in all the entrepreneurship courses that we conduct, we don't actually do a grading. We don't actually give them pass, fail, ABC, no. Okay. But unless they take a diploma, unless they take a module, like for example, minor in entrepreneurship, then that is not conducted by us. So our office quite different from some of the other polytechnics. Some of our counterparts in, for example, in Temasek Poly, in Nanyang Polytechnic, they actually run entrepreneurship credit-bearing modules. We don't. We do all co-curricular. That means the students come if they want to come. Of course, we want the students to come. That is one of the indicators that we show our courses that students' response to our program is good. But we don't grade them, and we don't assess them. So it's really a case of coming from them, and we think that's important. So when it comes to innovation, I'm not sure, but I think the debate is still out there. Can innovation be taught? The debate is still out there. I'm not sure, but I think to share with the students some of the tools. In the last boot camp, what we did was that we introduced them AI tools. Using the generative AI to look at problem statements, to look at problems that the society may face or problems that the world may face. Because today the AI is quite convenient, and we use the AI to help them to clarify some of the issues and some of the ideas associated with their so-called solutions to the problems. I'm sure I didn't answer your question because you asked me how to introduce innovation in courses. Okay, it is something that I think many institutions are still grappling with. Can innovation be taught? I think innovation can be shared. We can show people this innovation, that innovation. But I'm not sure. I personally am not sure whether innovation can be taught. So I'm sorry I can't help you with that one. But it is something interesting to think about. What we do is we share. We bring our seniors back, we ask them to talk about the problems that we solve. We ask them to share the solutions that come up with, and of course the startup journey. We share with them videos from overseas examples. For example, if you are familiar with some of the startup programs in the US, Shark Tank. Yeah. Y Combinator. We show them some of these examples, some of these innovations. We keep our fingers crossed that they will become more innovative. We don't know.
I just want to add on to what you have said. So again, same with every university, we have a program which course for innovation and startups, but we mostly share the things with students. So we have lectures. We also have 3 seminars. We invite alumni or specialists in the field to go and share with students. And we also have mentors who will work one-on-one with students with each group so they can discuss in more details about the startup journeys. And we also share with them the lectures by Y Combinator or Shark Tank, Vietnam or US. So there's no concrete syllabus for students, so they can learn different things from different sources. And after a while, we realize that some of them pick up the mindset and the philosophy of science, and we can see results after 2 years.
Thanks for sharing. Because I find it very interesting that sometimes we try to force it, but it doesn't happen. But sometimes when we share, they get inspired and maybe they become, they develop that knack for looking at things differently. The public polytechnic pedagogy is a problem-based learning, as I've shared. So even though the problems that the lecturers use, curated from the industry, are problems that has already got solutions. Obviously, because this is curriculum. But by introducing them problems and allowing them to discuss, the students are allowing them to discuss the problems and come up with solutions. We don't allow them to use AI to find the solutions. we hope that you also inculcate in them this skill to look at problems and not be afraid of them, to look at problems and look for solutions for them, and maybe hopefully they become more innovative along the process. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Và các anh chị nào có đặt câu hỏi ạ?
Please come to Singapore. Please come and visit me. Otherwise, I will come here more often.
Thank you, Dr. Low and Catherine, for your very insightful about the startup ecosystem in Singapore, and you can see how the Singapore government support for the startup. Also, from your sharing, we have a lot of from the Republic for Polytechnic have a very good program for the entrepreneurship. Also have the mentor for students to start up. I see that you had integrated the startup and entrepreneurship in your curriculum and training program, so that support for students along with many skills.
Anh có đang quên đâu đâu. Anh đang em chuyển cái bài này qua anh chuyển vào PDF được.
From your perspective, because you had developed the curriculum for the students, so also you mentor for the student to start up. So normally, so what do the Singapore students start up? And also from your perspective, what your advice for Vietnamese students in general or that students, what you get to start up, because you know that we know that now the AI and the technology, so we see all the stuff about the technology. So how about the other activity, or maybe the report, many disciplines, many industries can combine.
Thank you. Let me see whether I get the question correctly. Stop me if if I'm not on track. Our students, their ideas come from all kinds of. They have all kinds of ideas. So it doesn't come from a particular vertical. It doesn't come from a particular domain area. But we find that the students or the startups can actually tell a better story if they can relate to a problem. So it's usually a problem that they can relate to. Whether it is a problem that they saw, something that happened to their family, or a problem they see in the community, and then they will think of a solution for that problem. In that kind of situation, when they actually build a solution or build a startup, the passion is quite different. It's a little bit different when students try to imagine a problem and try to imagine a problem and then come up with a solution. We find that in that kind of situation, when students imagine a problem and try to come up with a solution, it's usually a case of the solution finding the problem. If you know what I'm trying to say, there is no real problem. Okay? The solution came up because the student thinks there's a problem. There is no problem there. And that is a problem, that is a challenge because the startup won't last. Because the market validation will fail. Also, usually when it is a real problem that happens to somebody, or to someone, or to their community, when they can relate to, the solution becomes a lot more believable, and the passion level of the student is very different. If I can share with you, one of our Moni is nodding my head, because just before we come to Na'ang, we had that lady, Rina from the, she's actually leading a project in the hospital, and she was talking to some of our students, and the students are trying to come up with a device to actually allow early detection of the disease. Okay? And when the students share with this mentor their idea, okay, the students actually started by sharing that one of them wanted to come up with this device because someone in the family is affected by the disease. And when she shared that kind of story, the storytelling became quite compelling. It became very powerful. And the mentor was quite touched. Okay? So she wanted to continue to support. So the one approach to look at that situation is that we usually will encourage the students to look for a problem that they can identify with. Don't try to imagine a problem. And don't try to go into something that you're not familiar. Okay? And of course, back to gentleman's point that, and therefore that leads to the other problem that if our students are not exposed to the global community, their solutions will be very much restricted to their local community. And that is not something that we are too concerned. Partly because at the students level, we do manage our own expectations on how far we expect the students to take their study. If you know what I'm saying. Our students from 17 to 21 years old, we are quite realistic in not giving them too much pressure in terms of, the idea must be able to solve the world problem. Because if they are not exposed to the world problem, and we want them to solve the world problem, there will be a disconnect. It will come up along the way. Rather, we want them to deal with something that they are very familiar with. And even if that may be a smaller community problem, if they can have a good solution to the community problem, even if with a small start, a small exit, it is still a success. In line with our greater me, celebrate every success kind of approach. I hope I answered the question. Did I miss out anything?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Xin chào và xin chào các chị. Xin chào về tiếng Việt bởi vì tiếng Anh không có tốt lắm. Thì giới thiệu tôi đến từ trong làm công nghệ cơ rồi đến quân một trong những cái vườn ươm tư nhân hàng đầu Việt Nam. Tức là tôi thấy rằng đã được gần 10 năm và hiện nay thì về sinh sản rất rộng lớn. Và một cái khó khăn hiện nay có chia sẻ với ngài thì tôi muốn chia sẻ thêm về một số khó khăn hiện nay đó là cái kinh phí cho vận hành. Vì thực ra những cái vườn ươm ở trường đại học hay là ở các cái tổ chức nhà nước ấy, mới có cái nguồn để mà tạo tiền lương hay những cái vận hành từ nhà nước hay là từ các nhà trường. Nhưng mà riêng những cái vườn ươm duy nhất thì thực ra cả cái quỹ ấy, thì chúng đầu tư vào startup phục vụ cho dự án phát triển dự án. Còn cái bộ máy vận hành của vườn ươm thì đang gặp cái khó khăn trong cái tài chính. Thì chỉ cần ông chia sẻ thêm một số kinh nghiệm, sau đó thì có cái nguồn tài chính phục vụ cho cái vận hành của vườn ươm này.
Yeah, thank you so much. So in terms of incubator accelerator in Singapore, right, there's a few business model that different incubators accelerator works, right? Of course, we talk about first Angular. Right? What Angular does, right, is they take a bit of equity from the startups. Right? So Angular is actually part of the accredited mentor program that they need. That is also you need to be an AMP in order to apply for the Startup SG Founder Grant. Right? So you have to go through an AMP like abuse and other AMP. Right? But however, for this commercial incubator accelerator, what it does is they take an equity, based on percentage of your equity, right? And that will be that business model that they run. Right? And of course, in terms of also sometimes they do a cut, right? In say the grants or the funding that you do. Right? Of course, there are other models in which that incubators and centers comes is to work with corporates. Right? So, for example, like I mentioned, right, but for the Microsoft as well as also NUS Enterprise, right? What it does is actually kind of a commercial agreement, and so NUS Enterprise is the one that helps to run the accelerator program, right? So they are as the program the operator of it. Right? Microsoft is the program owner of it, right? So it's also something that probably have to see is how can you work with corporates or other people to also run the incubator accelerator together, right? So it depends on which model you will prefer, whether it's the anchor model which takes a cut, right, of the equity of a startup that they incubate, right, or you work with a corporate that you get them finance, right? And then you help the corporates, right, to accelerate the startups, right, through their program, and the corporates also can support, right, the startups in other means such as like clouds. So for example, Microsoft, right, they support in AI, right? So they bring in also the AI engineers, right, to support them on building their AI solution. So it's very focused for this AI center, right? It's very focused on AI. So it's there where they also bring the technical expertise, right? They also think the other people from the Microsoft ecosystem come in to support the startups. So it go there also go global. Okay. So these are some financial ones that Singapore ecosystem is today with, and probably that's something that you can consider whether working with a private entity, right, to collectively work. And I guess also some that we actually shared also with different people is also having whatever like what Mr. Liu has shared, right? Whatever like foundations, right? To also come and support, right? Especially human entrepreneurship is something that philanthropy, maybe the philanthropic part of the foundation could support, right, to kickstart. Right? So whether is it the foundation, whether it's corporates, or whether it's in the end you also get the card. Right? That will be some of the business model you can consider to help finance your center.
Thank you.
Mọi người ai còn có hỏi gì đặt cho các chuyên gia của chúng ta được không? Nếu không thì xin mời tất cả quý vị, chúng ta có 15 phút nghỉ giải lao trước khi bước vào cái đoạn tiếp theo. Xin mời các thầy dùng vào để
lấy máy về.
Anh Tình, cái này có chuyển được cái hình nữa không? Có chuyển được cái hình mà background á.
Cái kiểu gì không biết chị. Em chụp vào capture chưa?
Trong anh có trong cái phần livestream, cái phần YouTube á, một bên YouTube á.
Được.
Được không? Ẩn lót là không phải ẩn là không nhiều đó, nhiều đó.
Tại vì ánh sáng ảnh nó khăn gì đó.
Không vừa kích nữa.
YouTube nó bắt ảnh dưới 2 MB mà cảnh góc tới 32 MB anh ném máy gần.
2 MB với 2 MB luôn.
Cái gì đấy chụp bạn
Trời ơi.
Ủa?
Không được kích thước hả?
Để chỉnh.
Anh mua trong cái đi, anh mua trong YouTube đi. Nhưng em thấy YouTube có cái mục mà chọn cái hình nó cái YouTube của mình đó là
Dễ chọn hình đây nè.
Cái mục
Đây là cái hình background nhỏ, hình nhỏ sau khi có nghĩa hình nhỏ là hình nằm phía tay nè.
Được ta. Thì cái đoạn mấy cái đoạn người cảnh mình nên là kiểu
nhỏ thành background này nè.
Nên để mình cảnh cái chứ ra đúng không?
Thì đó là làm đúng là phải làm trong đi nè, trong đi là đúng rồi nhưng mà mình không dịch cái thước được nên đó. Nhưng mà
không có fit được.
Từ từ như được.
To hơn đúng không? Mới
không được, không được.
Vị trí hay
Vị trí
khó dùng đi.
ok thì anh không được đó.
Em có mà like bên chỗ cái lớp tập huấn thì dùng cái Zoom ok hơn. Anh dễ ra, anh cứ kể là có mấy cảnh mà họ giải lao này, để mình chuyển vào cái lớp ok. Mà mới đăng cái vị trí
để anh thêm cái ảnh
thường cái này phải tự
nó
fix thấp hơn, cái này phải tự fix cái ta.
được rồi kìa,
Không.
chưa được lắm.
Em có cái ảnh anh fix được không?
Anh chọn ảnh được
Thì anh có cái ảnh
được,
anh có cái ảnh nữa anh sửa, tức là cái ảnh cho mình sửa không ta?
được sửa không được nè, không sửa được nè,
Không, tức là tích vô cái ảnh
nó tự kiểu không được.
chị mà chắc sau phải về nhà tự tết. Em cũng khó thường mà mấy cái này chọn tự fix cho dễ ấy. Anh bắt mình tự chỉnh không có cần được.
Auto chứ ta, auto
phải tự fix cho mình.
Cấu hình nó khác rồi. Đây, đúng rồi.
Em ăn không phun à? Ăn có phun không?
Nhưng mà
Tại là phun.
mờ thay chữ mờ nữa.
Thì cái này rồi sau ý kiến lại với sếp đi. Thế bây giờ là như nắng mở quá. Hay là nghiên cứu như nào chứ?
Mờ quá mình làm kiếm chị mình làm nhắn nét đi. Mình nói là chị
Anh biết không cái nào về nhà la nhưng mà để chế độ rồi biết đấy cái xong là quay phòng mình làm việc kìa, cái xong vô mỗi tài khoản coi thôi, khi nào ok đem ra ngoài ra
về thấy cái máy quay test cái quay nó có dài nó cắm mà anh nghĩ là không, anh nghĩ là máy này cũng nét nó không đến ngẫu khoảng 10 cho đi đâu vậy cho like YouTube
do vị trí anh chứ còn đến nỗi mà gớm một cầm một cảnh.
tôi nghĩ thì nếu ra đây được thì là Facebook cũng được, Facebook chắc nét hơn
Nhưng mà với mình test Facebook thì không được rồi đúng không?
có test được ta không bữa giờ mình không được rồi, giờ mình không chọn cái vô trúng cái sụp đó mình chọn sai.
Nhưng mà là YouTube rồi share qua Facebook game nữa.
Facebook tức là Facebook có
Nó có gì không? Nó có gì
Facebook
Facebook nào?
Facebook có bắt điện đó là họ xem
Không do mình điện thoại chứ còn nếu mà like máy tính thì nếu mà like cái này thì vẫn bình thường.
Em like điện thoại là mình phải quay dập, em muốn điện thoại lại là họ xem
Đúng rồi, con ngang là sẽ bị tức là không nằm như này nên mình không coi
nó sẽ nằm nó không có chế độ là họ để điện thoại thẳng mà không có nằm ngang mà hình như vậy thì
đây cái này anh biết là hai người ta mới đồ đọc đến chất lượng kém ra. Tại vì hôm qua
cái này là lái hình ảnh này mà đồ đọc chất lượng kém là sẽ ra hình ảnh chắc cái
đúng rồi.
Hôm qua mình cắm đúng cái này thì nó lại
hôm qua mình cắm là nét hơn
được xíu.
Đúng rồi nhưng mà hôm qua nhớ cái gì vẫn nét hơn cái này mà
chắc chị hôm qua mình test sơ ngồi nếu mình đâu mình nhìn đi thôi chứ mình đâu thấy like nhìn đi ngồi nếu mình đâu thấy chữ mình thấy cũng được. Anh nghĩ là nó chất lượng thì do cái đầu đọc này đầu đọc nó tốt hoặc là cái này á nếu có máy tính tốt cắm trực tiếp từ luôn máy tính đó là nó sẽ đẹp hơn. Có máy tính phòng mua nó có cái
phòng cũng có cái kia ở đâu đọc mà có cái xong cái sau tại vì trung phòng là bữa sau lấy kia đi bữa sau lấy kia đi cái kia có
là máy tính kia nó
có cái đầu cắm HDMI này USB này đây.
Nhưng mà hôm bữa em like zoom này cũng được cái này mà
đúng rồi nhưng mà em nghĩ bữa sau nên đề xuất một cái zoom cái mình live zoom mình không có share lên cho họ, mình live zoom xong mình
share lên YouTube
mình lên YouTube xong cái share lên YouTube cho họ coi thôi.
Được rồi.
Được đừng có ai share link Zoom hết á.
Nếu như vậy thì dùng miễn phí được chứ như mua Zoom.
Anh được có tiếng hết trơn này anh.
Phải không?
Dạ.
Anh tưởng đâu dùng miễn phí là quy định số người chứ
Được có tiếng là
số người tham gia chứ.
Giờ thì hơi bất tiện cái là tại vì mình không có họp nhiều mà mình phải muốn tốn kém. Nhưng mà live á thì em thấy cũng ok, là một cái là thứ nhất ví dụ anh muốn quay cảnh này được này, cái xong ví dụ như cái lúc mà họ báo cáo á, gọi là anh chuyển cảnh, ví dụ họ đang báo cáo một cái bài đúng không, anh một đoạn họ cho họ nói, sau nói kia anh chuyển qua slide nhấn ok lắm. Ok kìa. Cái xong cái lúc
test không mình biết live Zoom nhé, test mấy lần
bữa vô là test.
Giống như mình đang học một tí nữa, mình đang so cái màn hình của mình đây là sẽ hiện trên live đúng không? Chia sẻ màn hình đó, chia sẻ màn hình
là hắn hiện thì cái như là cái khung là cái slide, còn con góc nhỏ giống như là là cái hắn hiện thì cái người hắn thu như kiểu cái này hắn thu nhỏ lại cái góc này kiểu đó, hắn chỉ một xí thôi. Cái sau là ví dụ như những cái cảnh này
hiện cái nào đây thì mình sẽ hiện bấm nó vô là hiện bảng nha. Ví dụ đang
chọn cái hiện thì á, nhưng mà
thì slide
nhưng mà Giang hè phải mua hai tài khoản kia.
Mua 2 tài khoản.
Vô 2 tài khoản. Tại vì một cái là để học, một cái là để chia sẻ cái nữa thì vậy. Với cả là kiểu như đang cái đoạn giải lao này anh dùng cái backdrop á, chỉ nên luôn cho hắn chỉ có dùng backdrop thôi, có nhạc thôi, không có người.
Video cái này cái chỉ màu
thử đi biết đâu được.
phái đi màu sắc mà sắc này chỉnh sáng này, cái này là phải chất lượng sắc thì không y nữa. Qua là gì
không được. Anh nhớ bữa là bên kia họ live vào cái phần mình
anh không nhớ, anh cũng live một bài nó dính dặn vậy nhưng mà nó sẽ bắt lại là lít cái này Trọng nhiều máy á, Trọng viên hắn đạo diễn mình Trọng.
Anh có dùng cái bàn trộn không?
Có bàn trộn.
Hay là anh live bằng cái bàn trộn này? Cái đó là cái bàn trộn hắn có nhiều cái khung hình trong nó chọn được. Tại vì thường mà live mà nhiều máy là sẽ dùng bàn trộn để anh muốn máy nào lên, muốn góc nào lên.
Bàn trộn nó sẽ kết nối với tất cả mấy bài.
Nhưng mà em nghĩ là dùng cái bàn trộn chứ hắn cần cái dùng phần mềm nữa.
Bàn trộn không phải ngoài à? Bàn trộn
anh nghĩ là được chứ.
Bàn trộn nó tích hợp bằng máy đúng rồi.
Giờ dùng cái bàn trộn đó là mình kết nối xong là mình hắn hiện thị như này bao nhiêu cái góc này mình chọn lên cho này đó. Hay là
ví dụ như bên này là bên hiển thị lên màn chiếu này, bên này là tất cả các cảnh này mà ơn chọn cảnh nào là bên như cái này này.
Bên này hay giờ nó đi đâu rồi. Muốn chung được mà chơi được được.
Cái sinh viên sư phạm đúng không? Khi đọc sinh viên đã ngồi tính là sư phạm tội vậy. Thì hiện mình cũng đi bên
mẹ em được anh luôn đó. Rồi để anh đó.
Em biết
sẵn giai đoạn khảo sát của anh mà.
Xin mời quý vị để
sáng qua đây ăn mà khảo sát qua đây ăn xong mới mình thấy một chung ăn trong cái bàn đó, xong nói chuyện hay với
chương trình lớp tập huấn của
sáng nay ăn
thì đã diễn ra trong 2 ngày, thì hôm nay đã đến
hội Kiệt thì
ngày
gọi
cuối
mình
cùng. Thì
từ có anh
chúng ta đã được
em lên cái xong anh
chia
bộ
sẻ từ các chuyên gia,
về xe điện em
các chuyên gia
đi bộ
về những chủ trương chính sách của thành phố cho đến những kiến thức về nền tảng của việc chuyên sâu về khởi nghiệp của anh và cái cái mà như là những chia sẻ hết sức ý nghĩa từ
không chấm mấy cái đồ luộc á, thịt đồ mình nấu lên á,
thì hy vọng ban tổ chức
kiểu như luôn luôn hả?
chấm một cái của em mà luộc đúng rồi.
chương trình hôm nay
Cơm
sẽ mang lại nhiều
cơm
ý
mà
nghĩa
cơm sống
Cống thịt rồi đúng không?
nhiều bài học quý
nhiều
báu
hôm qua nhiều đúng không?
các anh chị
Thì gà in qua đó.
Giờ biết nói là hôm nay rồi
làm việc cũng như là hoạt động trong cái lĩnh vực khởi nghiệp sáng tạo và đổi mới sáng tạo.
Đưa Giang
Thì trước khi kết thúc chương trình ngày hôm nay,
đi đâu á?
mời ông Nguyễn Viết Còn, giám đốc trung tâm hỗ trợ khởi nghiệp đổi mới sáng tạo sẽ lên và phát biểu bế mạc chương trình. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông.
Thưa các chuyên gia đến từ Singapore, đến thưa các anh chị là chuyên gia của các đối tác của trung tâm, là các anh chị và học viên về tham dự rất nặng. Thì báo cáo với các anh chị thì hôm nay thì trung tâm của tôi là những ngày mà rất là mưa bão, tuy nhiên rất là cảm ơn các chuyên gia đến Singapore tại Việt Nam để chia sẻ những kinh nghiệm hợp tác cũng như hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp của Singapore. Và cũng rất là cảm ơn các anh chị đến cái phút trường hiện nay cũng có mặt ở đây để cùng để nghe những cái trao đổi, những cái thiết kế. Chúng tôi mong muốn chia sẻ những kiến thức để xây dựng một hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp trong nhà trường, trong vườn ươm và các cái tổ chức bên ngoài. Các anh chị thì chúng tôi xây dựng cái mô này chúng tôi chia ra làm 2 ngày trong thời gian 12 hoặc 2 ngày một tuần. Thì chương trình của cái chương trình này thì có thể gì này đang để là chúng tôi xây dựng cái chương trình đầu tiên là chúng tôi sẽ giới thiệu về một số cái cơ chế sách, sau đó là giới thiệu về những cái đơn vị để hỗ trợ cho các bạn trong cái quá trình khởi nghiệp thành phố. Rồi chúng tôi chia sẻ những cái kinh nghiệm về cái công cụ mà chúng ta khởi nghiệp, như cái giới thiệu công ty rồi đó, chia sẻ những cái hành trình khởi nghiệp của họ rất là thành công. Và cuối cùng thì chúng tôi ngày hôm nay thì tôi các chuyên gia đến từ Singapore đã chia sẻ cái tổng quát về sinh thái khởi nghiệp của Singapore và các cái môi trường cũng như các cách thức vận hành của cái công ty và xây dựng Ươm Tạo trong trường đại học, cũng như cách thức mình chia sẻ về kêu gọi vốn và cách thức vận hành. Đó là những cái mô đun chúng tôi mong muốn rằng là rất thiết thực cho hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp. Và các anh chị thì tại sao chúng tôi chọn về Singapore là đối tác của chúng tôi trong thời gian vừa qua, thì chúng tôi thấy rằng khi chúng tôi tham gia đội học tập tại Singapore 10 ngày tại Singapore thì chúng tôi đã được tiếp xúc rất nhiều các cái vườn ươm, như của Phát đây là một vườn ươm rất là lớn của Singapore. Và chúng tôi tiếp xúc các cái tổ chức hỗ trợ khởi nghiệp dịch vụ Singapore như Enterprise. Chúng tôi vào các trường đại học của Singapore nghiên cứu về các mô hình ươm tạo. Và chúng tôi thấy rằng là cái môi trường của Singapore nó rất là phù hợp với môi trường thành phố này. Chúng ta gọi là để gì? Để như chúng ta có rất nhiều trường đại học trên địa bàn thành phố. Chúng ta có lực lượng sinh viên rất hùng hậu, chúng ta có lực lượng giảng viên rất là xuất sắc. Để đến như vậy các bạn thì chúng ta thấy được môi trường đó, và chúng ta người miền Trung thì ở chị cũng rất là trong những lúc khó khăn sẽ nỗ lực vươn lên. Thì Singapore họ cũng đã từng nỗ lực, thì cũng nhiều đã từng nỗ lực, nhưng Singapore không có gì cả, họ đã nỗ lực để vươn lên. Hiện nay họ đứng thứ 8 trên hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp toàn cầu. Đó là cái mà chúng tôi học được trong suốt 10 ngày ở Singapore, và những cái việc đó chúng tôi đã suy nghĩ và đáng để tôi cũng báo cáo rồi còn hơn 3 trang về hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp sau khi tôi học ở đó. Trong thời gian tới tôi sẽ chia sẻ với anh chị trong nghiên cứu. Chính vì vậy thì trong cái kết luận của năm của chị thì chúng tôi đã chọn Đà Nẵng sẽ thành trung tâm đổi mới sáng tạo mang tầm quốc tế. Mà muốn quốc tế thì tất cả mọi người phải hiểu được là chúng ta cần phải bắt đầu từ đâu để mình sẽ nhận được chính. Và chính vì vậy thì chúng tôi hôm nay đã tổ chức cái buổi tập huấn này với mong muốn là sẽ lan tỏa về sinh thái khởi nghiệp, những cách thức vận hành của các chị ở đây sẽ là tương lai sẽ thành các phương như là trung tâm ươm tạo, chúng ta đổi mới sáng tạo tại các trường đại học, các cái trung tâm ươm tạo, các cái vườn ươm ở bên ngoài để vận hành các cái chỗ của hiện nay thì gọi gì các cơ chế sách của đảng và nhà nước, của thành phố rất là thông thoáng. Đó là những các chị nghiên cứu, các chị nghiên cứu về nghị định 268 thì các chị phải đang chấp tới các chị thành phố sẽ đặt hàng được, hoặc các chị đề xuất thành phố để mà chúng ta có thể hỗ trợ được thành phố của cái này. Qua cái lớp này thì bản thân tôi và chúng ta cùng với tập thể chúng ta hỗ trợ khởi nghiệp rất là mong muốn bên cạnh việc mà chúng ta chia sẻ những kiến thức, được học tập những kiến thức thì cũng là cái câu nối để chúng ta kết nối, chúng ta có thể là hỗ trợ nhau. Thì những các trường đại học của địa bàn thành phố có thể là kết nối các trường của Singapore, các chuyên gia Singapore để trong quá trình sau cái buổi học hôm nay các trường trong cái mạng lưới hiện nay là chúng ta thành lập cái mạng lưới các trường đại học để chúng ta có thể chia sẻ nhau về những kiến thức, những cái thành tựu, những cái khó khăn, những cái đạt được trong thời gian vừa qua để chúng ta cùng nhau xây dựng một sinh thái mà có thể rằng là có sự cộng đồng và tất cả các thể cả một cái cộng đồng của việc gì mà chúng ta một lần nữa thay mặt cho trung tâm hỗ trợ khởi nghiệp xin rất cảm ơn các chuyên gia đến từ Singapore, các anh chị chuyên gia trong nước cũng như là các anh chị đã ngồi đến tham gia cuộc họp hôm nay, và mong rằng sau cái cuộc họp hôm nay thì chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau để xây dựng hệ sinh thái khởi nghiệp mà chúng tôi đang xây dựng đề án là trung tâm đổi mới sáng tạo mang tầm quốc tế. Cái lực năm là đạt được tròn trong 3 năm gồm thì hiện nay thì trung tâm của tôi đã gần như việc thảo luận xong, đã xin ý kiến các trường đại học thời gian đến. Mong rằng qua lớp này các chị có những cái sáng kiến mới, cách thức vận hành mới để góp ý cho chúng tôi để chúng tôi hoàn thiện cái đề án này, và mong là đến năm 2030 thì chúng ta thể làm trong top khoảng 300 cái sinh thái khởi nghiệp quốc tế. Và mong muốn đó là rất khát vọng, chúng tôi hiện nay rất khát vọng cả bộ máy đồng thời họ cũng như chúng ta một thực hiện chúng tôi rất hy vọng để xây dựng trên nền tảng và nó sẽ dần thành lập những cái trung tâm thương mại tự do, trung tâm tài chính và những cơ chế chính sách mới thì tôi sẽ mong muốn sẽ hỗ trợ sẽ thành thực hiện đạt những kỳ vọng mong muốn. Một lần nữa thay mặt cho toàn thể chúng ta một thực hiện chúc các chuyên gia để xin mong nhiều sức khỏe và gửi lời cảm ơn trân trọng nhất, cảm ơn các anh chị học viên hôm nay sẽ có những kiến thức bổ ích và nhiều sức khỏe.
Xin trân trọng cảm ơn những lời ý kiến của người khách còn. Sau đây sẽ đến với phần cực kỳ rất là mong đợi của tất cả mọi người trong trải qua 2 buổi học. Thì để công nhận những cái sự nỗ lực của tất cả mọi người thì ban tổ chức sẽ phát giấy chứng nhận hoàn thành khóa học cho tất cả các học viên đã tham dự trong đủ 2 ngày tập huấn. Thì ban tổ chức sẽ đọc tên mỗi lần là sẽ 10 học viên, thì các bạn sẽ lên sân khấu và đứng theo thứ tự đã đọc. Những bạn học viên nào có mặt trong hôm nay thì ban tổ chức mới trao giấy chứng nhận, còn những học viên nào không có mặt thì ban tổ chức sẽ không có trao giấy chứng nhận khi mà các bạn tham dự đầy đủ các buổi học. Thì sau đây thì ban tổ chức sẽ đọc tên và các bạn có tên sẽ lên đứng theo thứ tự. Đầu tiên bà Đặng Thị Thu Dung. Thứ hai là Vũ Ngọc Tuấn có mặt nè. Số 3 Trương Thị Văn Anh có mặt. Số 4 Đoàn Minh Thu. Số 5 Trương Ngọc Sao Phê có bạn Sao Phê mà. Bà Trần Thị Minh. Bà Nguyễn Thị Phương Thảo. Bà Trần Hà Phương. Bà Nguyễn Thị Ngọc Thảo. Bà Nguyễn Thị Ngọc Thảo có mà. Bà Dương Đặng Huy. Bà Lê Viết Mạnh. Trần Thị Trang. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông Nguyễn Viết Còn, giám đốc trung tâm hỗ trợ khởi nghiệp đổi mới sáng tạo sẽ lên trao giấy chứng nhận cho các bạn. Xin cảm ơn tất cả mọi người ạ. Được thứ hai xin trân trọng kính mời bạn Nguyễn Như Quỳnh ạ. Bạn Quỳnh có mà. Bạn Lê Anh Tuấn ạ. Cho hỏi có bạn Lê Anh Tuấn không ạ? Bạn Trần Văn Vũ ạ. Trần Văn Vũ. Bạn Phan Thị Cẩm Vân ạ. Văn có mà. Bạn Võ Thị Như Huyền ạ. Bạn Nguyễn Thị Ngọc Thanh ạ. Bạn Lê Vũ Trường Sơn ạ. Cô Thị Hoàng Văn ạ. Nguyễn Văn Huy ạ. Nguyễn Thị Bích Trâm ạ. Mai Thế Dũng ạ. Mai Thế Dũng con ạ. Và Mai Thế Dũng con ạ. Bạn Nguyễn Trần Bảo Ngân ạ. Bạn Nguyễn Văn Bình ạ. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông Zia Linh Lao, Phó Giám đốc phụ trách phát triển quan hệ đối tác và khởi nghiệp tại ICI, sẽ dành trao giấy chứng nhận cho các bạn. Xin mời dành một tràng vỗ tay cho tất cả các học viên chúng ta. Xin cảm ơn. Tiếp tục là lượt thứ ba. Xin mời bạn Trần Thị Diệu Anh ạ. Trần Thị Diệu Anh có ạ. Tạ Quốc Việt ạ. Mời bạn. Bạn Cao Huy Vĩ ạ. Mời bạn Nguyễn Ngọc. Út Trăng. Bạn Trần Thị Quỳnh Anh ạ. Bạn Lê Thị Kim Yến ạ. Mời bạn Nguyễn Thị Hồng Xanh ạ. Hồ Thị Kim Hạnh ạ. Mời bạn Nguyễn Thị Bảo Ngọc ạ. Xin mời ông Nêu Kia sẽ trao giấy chứng nhận cho tất cả các học viên ạ. Xin đọc kính mời ông. Xin chào một tràng vỗ tay cho tất cả các học viên của chúng ta. Cảm ơn ạ. Đối với những học viên nào hiện tại chưa có giấy chứng nhận thì liên hệ ban tổ chức để ban tổ chức có thể bổ sung giấy chứng nhận cho tất cả các đại biểu tham dự đầy đủ hai nhận. Chương trình tập huấn của chúng ta thì đến hôm nay đã kết thúc. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn các quý vị lãnh đạo, quý chuyên gia cũng như là tất cả các quý vị đại biểu đã tham dự đông đủ cũng như là và rất là nỗ lực trong những ngày mưa bão tại thành phố Đà Nẵng. Hy vọng thì trung tâm cũng sẽ tổ chức những cái khóa đào tạo tiếp tục và sẽ nhận được sự tham gia của tất cả mọi người. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn. Xin mời tất cả mọi người sẽ lên sân khấu để mình chụp một tấm ảnh tập thể ạ. Xin trân trọng mời ạ.
Hai bàn dưới nó cắt qua bên này, hai bàn bên này cắt. Rồi nhìn cam giúp em nha. 1, 2, 3. Thêm kiểu 2. Rồi mình thay đổi một kiểu nữa hả? Rồi 2, 2, 3. Dạ đó, cảm ơn.